Okay, so you'll recall in the first video for this lesson, we finished by saying that for the composite function g of f of x, it's really important that the range of f is a subset of the domain of g. In other words, what is coming out of the first machine is not going to break the second machine. So we'll look at two specific examples of defined functions f, g and h up the top. The question we're going to think about is what is the maximal domain of two composite functions. Firstly, we'll look at f of g of x, and the second function we'll take a look at is h of f of x. So with f of g, we're thinking about the maximal domain. We need to consider whether or not the range of g is a subset of the domain of f. So when we look at those two sets, the range of g, which is the square root function, is all the numbers from 1 above. So all real numbers from 1 to infinity. That is obviously a subset of all the real numbers, full stop. So we've satisfied this condition, and we can say that the composite function f of g is defined for the implied domains of f and g. So just to show what we've sort of talked about with this machine diagram, f of g, we need the input for f to be okay, and in order for the second machine to work, it can take any real numbers. So obviously any real numbers that come out of g will be a subset of those, and our composite function is going to be fine. And so the domain of f of g, the domain of the composite function, is going to be just the domain of g itself. So down here we can see the domain of the composite function f of g is equal to the domain of g, the maximal domain of g, which in our example is from 2 to infinity. So just to summarise, we looked at f and g, we looked at the range of g, the domain of f, considered whether the condition was satisfied, that the range of g is a subset of the domain of f, and we were able to find the domain of the composite function. Here's what that problem looks like on a graph. We can see the functions f and g graphed with the dotted lines. And the composite function is this blue graph here. And you can see by looking at the graph, both g and the composite function have the same domain. They start at an x value of 2, and those graphs both proceed towards infinity with respect to the x-axis. Let's have a look at a different composite function now, and we'll think about what is the maximal domain of h of f. F is a quadratic function, h is a log function. So just like we did before, we're going to consider the condition whether the range of f is part of the domain of h, or a subset of that domain. So this is a different case, because when we look at the range of the quadratic function, it goes from -4 to infinity. However, the domain of the log function is above -3. So there's a interval there which is not a subset of that domain. So all those numbers from -4 up to -3 would cause a problem for this. This is what we're talking about with respect to the diagram. So we've got our function h. It can only accept any numbers above -3. This is our function f, which currently accepts all real numbers and outputs values that start at -4 and go all the way to infinity. And this is a bigger set of values than the values that can be taken into h. So that's the problem with this composite function. So what we can do in this situation is we can make a modification or a restriction to the domain of f so that the output of that function is actually going to be a subset of the domain of h. So if our function f, this quadratic function, x plus 2 squared minus 4, is what we're thinking about, we need all of the values, for whatever x is, we need all of the values of that expression to be no less than -3, in fact always greater than -3. So essentially we need to solve this inequation. We need to know when x plus 2 squared minus 4 is greater than -3. For what values of x is that true? There's numerous ways of going about this. I've shown you two on this page here. So let's have a look at the calculator. A calculator can solve inequations, particularly when they're quadratic. They get a little bit tricky to do by hand. And our calculator tells us that our expression is going to give us values greater than -3 as long as x is less than -3 or greater than -1. So we've got a union of two sets here. Also, you can see on the graph here, if we're able to look at an intersection, if you like, of y equals -3 and think about the x values at which that intersection occurs, that is also going to show us that x needs to be less than -1 or greater than, less than -3 or greater than -1. So again, a union of those two intervals. Another way of representing that same domain is to say, well, it's all real numbers excluding the values from -3 to -1. So what does that achieve? So what we can see is that instead of having all real numbers here for the domain of f, we've excluded the real numbers from -3 to -1. And that means that the output of f is now from -3 to infinity, which is a subset, or in fact equal to, the allowed values or the domain of h. So in a way we've sort of fixed the domain of f, what we can input into f, so that we can form a composite function between f and h. And here's that composite function. This is the domain of the composite function, so the domain of h of f, even though the implied domain for f was all real numbers, for the composite function the domain of the h of f will be all real numbers excluding -3 to -1. So just to reiterate that process that we've just worked through, we had a look at the functions h of f, we considered their range and domain. We found out that the condition that the range was a subset of the domain of h was not satisfied. We needed to solve an inequation using the function for f so that the domain for the composite function would be restricted. We worked out what that restriction was, and hence we found the domain of the composite function. And just to see what this looks like on a graph, we can see the composite function. It's this funnel-shaped blue graph. We've got asymptotes at those values, -3 and -1. So we are excluding, or the function excludes, all the values of x that lie in between those asymptotes, including those asymptotes. So interestingly enough, you'll see that the domain of the composite function has actually turned out to be a bigger domain than the function for h itself. So the domain for h itself is all the real values greater than -3. Just a quick word when we're talking about composite functions in regard to inverse functions. Just let's do a quick review of what inverse functions are. Remember my little analogy here with the origami. So let's say we've got a function that folds a square piece of paper into a paper crane. The analogy for the inverse function would be a machine that takes the paper crane and unfolds it and returns the square sheet of paper. So what happens when we use a function and its inverse to create a composite function? Unsurprisingly, we get exactly the same output as the input to that composite function. So if we input any value of x through f and then through the inverse of f, we're going to get exactly the same value out. So a specific example, we can see that if I let f be the exponential function 3 to the power of x, its inverse function is the log of x. So when we form composite functions with those two functions, the function and the inverse, we get the relationship that 3 to the power of log x is just x, or the other composite function, the log of 3 to the power of x, is also x. So just to review what we've talked about in the two videos about composite functions, hopefully you have a good idea about what a composite function is using the analogy of the machines. We've seen how do we compute outputs or expressions for composite functions. After reviewing domain and range, we had a fairly in-depth discussion about when a composite function is defined, and we looked at two examples in particular. Finally, we talked about the property that when functions are used with their inverse functions to create a composite function, the output for that composite function is always x. That completes this lesson. Thanks.